back to platform events. We're going to move to slightly different platform events. We've seen informative and persuasive. And because these are the events that are typically done in public speaking class, we would consider these the more basic of the platform events. The next two that we're going to do are viewed by most as the much more difficult, much more complicated events. Kind of ironic then that both of our speakers will be from Long Beach, but we'll overlook that this one. The first of these two is an event called After Dinner Speaking. Now, the similarities to what you've already seen. Structurally, it can be either informative or persuasive. That's really an option. They will still be 10-minute speech, memorized, source supports to illustrate what they're talking about. The difference with After Dinner Speaking, or as it's often called, speech to entertain, is that this event is going to try and make a serious point, but use humor as the vehicle to do so. The demands of the event are somewhat, I would say, strenuous in the sense that it cannot be a stand-up event. This is not stand-up comedy time. It still needs to be a speech that makes a point. However, to do well, you should probably also be as funny as any stand-up that you've ever seen. So it's going to be both academic and very funny, and make its point through those two methods, if you will. The speaker that we're going to see this morning is an excellent illustration of that. Daniel Lopez from Cal State Long Beach, who should be making his way down here even as I'm talking about him, because he doesn't want to give me too much time to talk about what he has so many things to say. I'll save most of those for his partner in crime that's here with him. I'm just impressed that you lost the Jerry curl. That's all right. Okay. Daniel Lopez is an excellent illustration of this. This past year at the AFA National Championships, and this is the first time we've talked about AFA, a lot of our speakers thus far have been from community colleges. The AFA National Championships for the four-year colleges, Daniel Lopez was fourth in this event this past year. So you'll see an excellent illustration of that this morning. I'll be back to talk about it in a little bit.
So I was flipping through channels last night when I came across West Side Story, the quintessential Latino movie for Americans. Yeah, from a Latino point of view, not so accurate. A white guy goes running through the alleys of Spanish Harlem screaming, "Maria!" And only one girl comes to her window. Back when West Side Story was made, American interest in Latin culture was pretty superficial. But now, times are changing. 3 years ago, Time magazine ran a cover story about the Year of the Latino. The picture was of my cousin, Jennifer Lopez. But that's kind of like identifying all black people with Michael Jackson. Last year, the August 22nd, 2005 issue featured the 25 most influential Latinos in the country. And this time, we had politicians and scientists and writers. And the number 17? J-Lo. Progress. Sort of. The magazine goes on to explain that with 41.6 million Hispanics in the United States, over $600 billion in buying power and a new political clout, the Latinization of America is more than a music or pop trend, but rather the emerging face of American culture. Or, as the magazine puts it, Hispanics promise to reshape America as vitally in the 21st century as African Americans did in the 20th. Which is really kind of a bummer, because if we were going to steal anyone's thunder, I'd want it to be white people's. And simultaneously broadcast in Espanol by hitting your SAP button. Primero, how do we get to the situation of Latin importance to begin with? Segundo, what are the impacts of the Latinization of us? Tercero, what will the future hold? How will Latinos reshape America? And will it be in the shape of the Virgin Mary appearing to us in a tortilla? Finally, along the way, I will point out some famous people you might not have known were Hispanic. Starting with Hillary Clinton. What? Black people took Bill. Let's start at the beginning. The Crusades, or when Catholics attack. Our numbers are a direct result of the Catholic Church. We're talking about a religion that thinks the Gaza pull-out means trying not to get your girlfriend knocked up. Again. So we've got the numbers. Why does that matter to any of you? Now some of those numbers aren't so pretty. The Europeans came and conquered. Africans got conquered and were told to come, but with Latinos it was a little bit different. It was like, oh, there's some Spanish neighborhoods, and oh, we own Puerto Rico. And then you looked around and it was, oh, damn, they're everywhere. Census.gov tells us that we are the most populous minority group at 1 in every 7 Americans. But the other statistics are depressing. The Pew Hispanic Research Center documents, a very important word for all of us immigrants, so I'll say it again for you, documents, that while the most populous, Latinos are also the most likely to work the lowest paying jobs, the most likely to be illegal, and the most likely to drop out of high school. Okay, this is part of researching the speech that I got a little depressed. I mean, where's the uplifting shift? Where's the positive turnaround? At this rate, in a few years, I'm gonna be mowing your lawn for beer money. Suck. But then a street came to deliver my people to the masses. No, not Cesar Chavez Avenue. Madison. The post-census headlines everywhere led with the Latino story, including the April 15, 2005 Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which read, a ripe market. I get it. Corporate America realized that there were billions of dollars at stake and rushed to make the first Latin Coke, Mac, and Gap commercials. John Kerry and Jorge Bush made multiple Spanish-language television appearances. Robert Rodriguez gained cult status from El Mariachi, and Selma Hayek dated a white guy. And we were finally more than an afterthought, or an illegal immigration issue, or an excuse to boycott grapes. Another famous Hispanic you might not have known about, John Steinbeck. He wrote The Grapes of Wrath, a drama about migrant workers. Right, what you know. The impacts of the Latinization of America are widespread. For example, I didn't shave today. But beyond the numerous fashion trends that Latinos are now bringing to forensics, the impacts of the Latinization of America can be felt economically, politically, and culturally. First, and of course most importantly, money. The Chicago Sun-Times of March 5, 2005 reveals that Sears is teaming up with Latina magazine to launch a line of clothing targeting the $6.6 billion in sales of apparel to Hispanics. That in addition to Extreme Makeover Home Edition. Dude, you didn't know? Ty Pennington. Chicano. And while I'm busy investing in things like food and shelter, Hispanic Business Magazine of August 9, 2005 states that Latino investment in the stock market is rising faster than the Latino population. Politics. We've got 25 members of the House, 3 senators from Florida and Colorado, logical, and New Jersey. Less logical but proves my we're everywhere now point. We've got the mayor of Los Angeles, the governor of New Mexico, and in the cabinet, we've got Menudo, chairman of Commerce, Carlos Gutierrez, and Attorney General Alberto Gonzalez. 2 Hispanics who sold out faster than the Black Eyed Peas. Okay, fancy math time. That's 32 political officials out of 41.6 million people. And you divide by 2. Foil. Okay, we're still being screwed worse than that astronaut who got told, no, we've got it fixed this time. As for culture, take a look around. It's everywhere. From the #1 children's cartoon, Dora the Explorer, to the Hispanic owner of the Anaheim Angels, Arte Moreno. Hispanic chick lit is hot. Books, not the gun. Spanish language TV and radio was the fastest rising in the country, and the George Lopez Show is the highest rated TV sitcom in history. Not right now. But it could be. Later. If it gets funny. And now for a true example of the Latinization of America, I present to you my family tree. That's my sister, she does PR, and that's my dad, he was a Navy man. That's my Uncle Pablo, he invented uranium. Okay, he was the one you never left alone with the kids. My great-grandfather was a horse thief, and this is my Uncle Ernie. He's like way famous for being on t-shirts. The point is that Latin families are just like everybody else. A few successes, a few black sheep, and a criminal. Damn, where are the bushes? So what will the future look like? I choose to believe it will look like Minority Report with all those cool sideways cars, but that's not for like 100 years or something. For the immediate, I see first, more brown babies. And something I like to call the Desperate Housewives effect. Now think about that show for a second. There was a Latin couple with a white gardener. And that's the future. Not that all gardeners would be white. I mean, that would be cool, but I'm realistic. But that it wouldn't be weird for the richest couple on the block to be a Mexican couple. With no kids. Okay, bad example. Think of it this way. Pretty soon, more Americans than Mexicans will have eaten a taco. Yeah, wrap your mind around that. More than food, NAFTA has turned into CAFTA. Free trade has moved south. And there will be a large influx of cheap Latino products for everybody. No matter how many third world economies we have to destroy. People like Sarah Martinez Tucker, who has a foundation to increase college graduation rates among Latinos. And Ada Quiacheyo, who has helped research specifically designed for Latinos. And Anthony Romero, the first gay man and Latino to be the leader of the ACLU. They are just the tip of the brown iceberg. We're everywhere. And if you think we're going to stay at 32 political officials, check out the slate for the midterms. The July 17, 2005 Washington Post reveals that over 75 Hispanics will be running for Congress. What makes this different from the last time we called it the Year of the Latino is that this is more than a music or pop trend. Now, I grew up in this country. I lived that delicate balance between American national identity and Mexican culture. And what it boils down to is simple. This is the evolution of our country. Mi tierra. Y nosotros estamos viviendo juntos. We are living this together. Finally, in a shocking development, George Lucas has announced that he will go back and digitally add more Hispanics to his Star Wars films. That's just crazy. We already have a famous Chicano in Star Wars. A Chewbacca? Man, we knew Chewie from back in the day. Speaking of movies, I had to turn off West Side Story. I mean, it made no sense. Latino gangs challenging dance wars? Some white boy kisses my sister and I'm fucking him up. Hey, I'm not laughing. But serious. Today we looked at how we got to the situations Latin informed us to begin, the impacts of the Latinization of us, and a little bit of insight into the future, so that hopefully we can see that our country is changing. A little more accented, a little more spice, but infinitely more interesting.
That is right. A brilliant example of how to walk the fine line between making a very serious point, in this case, informative structure but still persuasive in nature, and easily as funny, well, funnier than most stand-up routines that I see. The one thing I want to say about his humor, though, and it's so critical to this event, is it's not tangential. It really comes out of what he's saying. Now, many different types of humor. From the characters that he plays, you know, especially the one at the end that I can kind of judge about it. But wordplay, a lot of puns in the speech, pointing out irony in sources and things like that, political humor, social humor, pop culture humor. Does a nice job of having a variety of humor that comes out of the topic rather than just out of left field, oh, funny comment, slap it in there to get a cheap laugh. So it really does a nice job of that. Source support, still like informative and persuasive. It's still a well-supported speech that makes its point. It's academic in nature in that sense. So very good job in all those. The other thing I'll say delivery-wise is I like early on in the subtlety. He's very dynamic, as he should be as a speaker, but even begins to layer in what we would typically characterize as Hispanic language styles, if you will, in this. And I've seen you speak in other events. That's a choice you make in this one, right?
For the most part.
Yeah. Questions? No questions? You're all ready to do this, right?
Is Shaman Brewer really grumpy?
If he was, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I'm pretty sure I'd have an AK and I'd be in a jungle somewhere.
Okay. And here we have an example of gullibility. No. Other question? I saw some hands back there. All right, back there.
Has anyone ever questioned you, like, is you're like that any Hispanics, you know, because there's a lot of Hispanics like, oh, it's not like that, the stereotype type. Have you ever run into that type of problem?
I have run into it. I mean, it's obviously when you do a topic like this, it's a very fine line you walk.
Right.
Because like you're dealing with obviously a multiracial audience, and you know some things that I don't deem offensive, other people do. I mean, to me, the event is in good fun. Like that's why we do it, to kind of poke fun at ourselves and how other people perceive us as well, which I think is the part that creates that. I'm not just poking fun at I'm trying to make other people realize that how they see us is almost ludicrous and funny in and of itself.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
Have judges ever told you anything about that? Something like this?
I've gotten some comments. Traditionally we don't speak on what judges do or do not say, and I say nothing. But I have had people say that that they were offended or that they thought I was being offensive or racist or selling out, among other things.
Audience adaptation is a very important principle, so I'm glad you bring that up. But anytime you say, has this ever happened? The answer is usually going to be yes. Okay? Because anything can happen. As a general rule, the critics that you are going to have in this event are typically much more open to a wide variety of ideas. Whether they agree with them or not, they're at least willing to listen critically to whatever you're saying, much more so than you might find in most public speaking situations. Because after all, this is still an academic laboratory, and you have a lot of instructors, teachers that are working to, or with you, to come up with what are the best answers to these types of questions. Other questions? Over here.
Is there a significant difference between performing for a large audience and a small audience in a classroom, specifically for like ADS?
There's a huge difference. I mean, because in a small audience, especially in speech, like you've been around, you know people, you get to pick on people in the audience. There's usually, if I have a smaller 25 or 30 people instead of 80 in here.
Close to 200.
I don't know. But I'm saying if it's easier to interact with people, I'd rather interact with them more. Because you can do that and you make them feel more a part of what's going on. In a big audience, you're trying to touch everybody as much as possible. But yeah, there's a difference.
And very rarely are you going to speak in front of an audience this size, especially in groups.
Yeah.
What do you do when people don't always laugh?
You keep,
Curious.
you keep going. You pray to God someone laughs at something else later.
And by the way, never assume just because people aren't laughing that they don't like you. You being human beings, are notoriously bad at reading nonverbals. I've walked, and this is another lesson just in terms of watch what you're saying in tournaments. I've walked up behind people as they're telling their coach how this judge just hated them because they glared at them, and I'm looking at them going, did I actually circle the first few? I must have missed something. Okay? You can't read what your judges are thinking or your fellow audience members. Half the people are going, they stonewalled me, they didn't laugh. No, they were just terrified they had to get up next. Okay? So don't try and read too much in. Question down here.
You had a wide variety of sources pertaining to the three main cultures in America, the Mexican, the Black, and white. How do you determine how many sources you use for this, and when do you draw the line?
What do you mean, sources, academic sources, like newspapers?
No, the celebrities, the politics people, but I mean, you had a lot of people that you named in your speech. Where do you?
In ADS, I try really hard not to draw the line. I was once told funny trumps all in AD. That's kind of the point, is that we're here to throw stones a little bit. To me, crossing the line is like, and I don't know, I mean, like, I think crossing the line is something you know when you do it. Like, and I wouldn't do it if I felt that I was. And that's like some self-control that I exercise as a speaker in deciding my own event. But I try to, when I put together a speech, I try to do it as, you know, my idea of crossing the line rather than someone else's, because you see so many different people, you can't really presume what is crossing the line.
I'd like to add to that, because this question has now come up in a variety of different iterations today. How many sources are necessary? Informative, persuasive, after dinner, CA. The answer is the same for all of them. As many as necessary to prove the specific point that you are making in that speech. One informative may only require 10, another might require 17. It depends what you're talking about. And we can't use so many that the speech is no longer your speech, it's just a list of quotes. So it's not event specific as much as it is argument specific in what it is that you're saying. Other questions? Here and then there.
How do you come up with jokes? You just sit down and be like, I need to be funny.
It's partially that, but anyone who writes like AD on their own, like shake their hand, because I do it with teammates, coaches, like we brainstorm ideas, people we want to make fun of, things that are going on that you want to make fun of. I mean, like everyone laughed at the Black Eyed Peas joke, but like I'd say it's almost not even new right now, but you know, when we were writing the speech, it kind of was. Same thing with the astronauts. Like, they just had that problem. And I think they just had another one a couple weeks ago, so maybe it's newer than I thought. But, like, it's just, you bounce around ideas with as many people as you can. Like, if you can get 20 people in a room and look at it and find something funny, like, go for it.
Nobody writes a sitcom on their own. They have an entire staff of people to bounce ideas off of. That's not that unlike this event. Question down here, and then we have to move on.
My kind of relates to that is that obviously you have a structure, for the structure you give your speech, obviously you have a structure for your speech. Is there an actual structure that you use to tie in your humor and where it actually goes?
No. Like, I really try to feel it out, and you're kind of like, you're going along and you're writing a speech, and you're like, it's either, okay, I haven't said anything funny in a while, or I need to say something funny now, or is this point that I'm making going to be funnier if I say something funny? And it's, I mean, ADS isn't like, ADS is so alive. And like, I mean, doing the speech here compared to the things I've done other times, like, sometimes you improvise like 15% of your speech in a round, just trying to come up with different things that may or may not be funnier. And so trying to follow that structure, I think, hinders it. It's not like persuasion where you have to make, you know, specific points at specific places. ADS, the speech is way more alive.
I'm going to ask a final question. Well, how evolutionary is this speech for you? How much did it change from the first time you did it till the end?
It didn't change that much. Like, and I know it's like a bad example, but I think the core of the speech stayed a lot of the same. And a lot of the big jokes, like the Chewbacca joke I had all year, you know, and the Black Eyed Peas joke we had for a while. But I think what really changed in the speech was having to find different ways to convince people of significance to a certain extent. And I think what was really evolutionary for me was that I had never really done it yet. And so learning an entirely new speech outside of persuasion and crit, or CA, which you guys are about to see, which I did the year before, and then doing ADS, like, I think I evolved more as a speaker learning a new genre than I did as my speech evolved.
The reason I ask that is oftentimes, if you see ADSs or STs as they go through the year, jokes keep getting added and dropped and added and dropped. Because of the dynamic nature of the event, you will discover what works, both for the speech and for you. Thank you, Mr.